right, welcome to Evolving Politics with Fenner Parker, presented by the Nash County GOP. This is the very first episode, and our very first guest is Sheriff of Nash County, Keith Stone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
So you and a team went up to Western North Carolina after Hurricane Helene, correct?
That is correct. Two teams went up at two different times.
Okay, what was it like up there?
Devastation like I had never seen before. I saw the hurricanes and the devastation that we had in our area during Fran and the aftermath of what happened in Princeville and a lot of our low-lying areas. You got to remember that water just rises here and it devastates. There, it was mudslides, it was roads that were completely washed out, homes lost, number of lives lost. It is very humbling to see the turnout of the people of Western North Carolina, how their resilience and how they came about helping when they had lost everything themselves. I was amazed at the work ethic of those people out there, and it's a testament that they are God's children, because I could not imagine going through that without having faith.
And what were y'all doing up there exactly?
We at the first part, when I went with the first initial team there, we were doing life-saving missions. We were going out making sure that people had essentials, and the essentials that we were trying to get to were critical needs people. Like one kid was on a ventilator, and the backup generator needed fuel, so we had to carry fuel. Then we were carrying food to people that were not able to get out and not capable because of being handicapped. And then later we were there to prevent looting and doing other type of missions, evaluations of areas that needed the different kind of work done to it to rebuild.
So there was a lot of looting going on?
There was some in some areas, and that was one of the things that I didn't see as much of, but there was a few cases of it, and those people were identified, and actually our team made arrest on it.
Okay. It was a lot of federal help up there?
I did see federal help. I saw more people that were helping people, though, just groups. Samaritan's Purse, I never really knew much about them, but if I had to donate to somebody right now, that would be the first people I would donate to. How quick they came out with hundreds of people, and they would go into these storm-damaged homes and just completely tear out the stuff needed tearing out, re-sheetrocking, and putting people's lives back together. I was so amazed at what that group could do. I saw more of that. I saw people with their backhoes and track hoes, these companies, private companies, come up rebuilding the roads.
Well, hopefully they can start to get it back together.
It is. It's a work in progress, and I see where our new president says that, hey, man, we're going to focus on rebuilding Western North Carolina, and we're going to put our funding in there. We've got to take care of ourselves before we take care of other places.
Right, because, we look at California and the wildfires going over there. They were getting the help they needed. Well, not as much as they could be getting, but it seemed like they were getting more attention than North Carolina. But now I think Trump has said that he's going to come over here Friday, actually, and then go off to L.A. and look over there.
And I can see why we did not get as much attention. When we first got there, we had no cell phone coverage. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, we eventually got it when the National Guard come in and they set up different antennas and stuff so that we would have the capability of communicating. But when we first got there, we operate on an 800 megahertz system. We could talk to each other, but other places didn't have much communications, and the cell phones were very limited and non-existent in a lot of areas.
So could people get in contact with family members or anything?
That was the thing. People calling from other parts of the state and saying, hey, can you go check on my loved one there at such and such home? Well, you would get to that location and maybe have to hike a mile up a road because trees were down and things of that nature. It was a good feeling to be able to go out and help. And that's one of the things why immediately I sent my team out. I didn't wait for anybody else to say, hey, we need to go do this. Because when we had hurricanes here, I was on the highway patrol. The North Carolina Highway Patrol sent troopers in from the western part of the state. I never saw any regret of them having to be down here. And I can tell you, my team was excited to be out there.
I'm sure they were grateful for your help because they needed it, and hopefully they can begin to recover and get what they need. So one question I had, do you see, like, what are the crime trends in Nash County right now?
You know, the crime trends that we see is we've got a jail over here with 250 people in it right now. I was asked last week, what can we do to reduce that? If you're looking to reduce jail population, I'm probably not your man, because I'm going to tell you, criminals do not need to be in the community causing problems and safety issues for our American people. That's one of the reasons that we have such a crime spree across America now, is because of COVID. Some brilliant person decided, well, we'll let all these people out of prison and out of jail because of COVID. That's probably the most secure place you can be instead of roaming up and down the street. And that has caused our jail population to go back up now because it's kind of evening out. Our biggest problem right now is these dangerous drugs. It's coming across the southern border. Fentanyl, the different type of crystal methamphetamines. These are real concerns because it causes death, and we're seeing it. It's an epidemic across America, and the number of people that are dying. There's more people dying to this stuff than there is wars. And we're an educated society now, but we keep doing it. So we need to put science behind what we need to do to keep our community safe, to keep our families off of this stuff, but we've also got to secure that border.
Right. Any drug busts going on?
Yeah, we do. We've got a very energetic drug unit, and we work in unison with Edgecombe County. It's a drug unit, and we do a lot there. I've got a team that is going out to Arizona in March to look at the drug trends of coming across the border. We do that a couple of times a year, and I'll send different deputies down, and they look and see what the trafficking patterns are and how the cartels are bringing this stuff into America. And people say, well, why from Nash County? Well, you got to remember, if it goes to the northeast, the probability of coming through here is very great. You've got a nice road system, 77 million vehicles travel 64,995 every day. It's an easy get off here, and it's where these drugs are trafficked at. So why not go to the base of where this stuff is started, or ground level, and it's at that border, and we learn a lot, because instead of seeing one trafficker here every 5 or 6 days picking one out, if you're out there working every day, you go down and you see it over and over with the Border Patrol, Arizona Highway Patrol, and the Texas DPS. We work very close with those, and we try to stay in contact with them to see what the trends are, because you always can't fight the problem in your backyard. You have to look across the country and see what the best methods are.
So y'all arrested a lot of illegal aliens for drugs and trafficking?
We get a lot of traffickers, but you've got to remember, a lot of these traffickers are not the illegal aliens. The cartels or businesses, what they will do is solicit someone that is has identity here in the United States, is not an illegal alien, and they will traffic it to them right across the border, and then they will take those drugs and bring it across the country. And it's a billion-dollar industry. So it's a business, and we're just out there trying to knock a hole in it. And as I tell my team often, every time you get a large seizure out there on the interstate, you never know the impact that you make in a family, because that could be the drugs that go into the home to end up demising that family and killing a family member.
Right. I mean, it's a big issue, all the drugs coming in.
It's a very big issue, and that's one of the biggest problems. I've often said, if I didn't have mental patients in my jail and I didn't have drug users in my jail that have abused drugs, I would probably have a very low staff and a very low number of people in there.
So that's what you mainly see a lot of in Nash County?
That's mostly what we're seeing, is a whole lot of mental issues in our jail, because across America, some swift person that sometimes says, let's close the Dorothea Dix, let's close Cherry Hospital, let's don't have long-term health care for some brilliant reason. And today it's ended up coming back, and now where we're going to keep these people? We have to keep them in our jails.
All right. We probably need to look at a way to bring back mental institutions.
Definitely
we
you
need
do.
them.
When America decided, well, we'll privatize this, it didn't work. Sometime or another, the United States has got to recognize it costs to keep America safe. And one of the things is it needs to be funded through the government of keeping mental people in mental institutions that need to be there, and also having long-term care for these people. It's not fair to the families, it's not fair to the mental patient or the citizens.
So I'm sure having the mentally ill people in the jails is probably not safe for even the other inmates as well.
As I had a discussion last week, you know, I can probably house 275 people in there if everybody is good inmates. But as of right now, I have 16 two-man cells that have one person in it because he cannot be housed with other people. He's a danger to himself. He's a danger to other inmates. He's a danger to the staff. And that's short term. He'll be out of jail and he'll be back out here on the street and he'll reoffend. So at the end of the day, mental health in America could be a whole lot cheaper than this revolving problem that we have.
So I'm sure that's just costing money to just be keeping them in one cell. I mean, that's a big waste of money probably.
Sure it is.
So how quickly are these people going back out on the streets?
Every month.
Every month? So it's just like a recurring cycle?
It's just a reoccurring cycle. We know them by name when they come in. They'll spend some time in there, and then they're back into community, and then they're right back in there again.
So there's no, I mean, even with I guess they go up in front of a judge?
Yeah, but the judge can't do but so much to them, and thankfully our judges recognize these people are mental. They're not criminal. They might commit criminal acts, but they need mental help and not incarceration.
That's a pretty messed up cycle.
Sure it is.
I don't know how you would start getting onto that. How would you say would be the way to deal with that?
I think that the President of the United States and the Congress need to get together and figure out a way that they're going to implement another mental health program here. We had it right at one time, or I thought we did. As a young deputy sheriff in Robeson County, I remember carrying mental patients to mental hospitals. And now these places do not have the staff, and nor do we have the institutions to keep these people. So we've got to invest in our mental health programs.
So have you seen any issues with people not having to register to buy a handgun with the sheriff's office anymore?
I've not seen an issue with that. What I do see an issue with is crime and guns. That is a serious problem here in Rocky Mount. You have a whole lot of violence associated with guns and people that have guns that don't necessarily need a gun. The criminal activity with a gun should never be tolerated. I see that training needs to be implemented when these individuals get guns. When you're 21 years old and you walk in and buy a weapon, we wouldn't want you driving down the road with a new car without having any training. You need training for a firearm. And I urge parents and loved ones, if you've got a firearm in your house, not only you could get that training, but the kids and everybody else in there.
Right. I mean, if a kid gets a hold of a gun or anything, I mean, it could just be bad and they don't know what they're doing. They just find it in a cabinet. That can always be bad.
I've seen it, and as I tell anyone, you're not going to hide anything from a 10-year-old in the house. That 10-year-old is when you're working and you're cleaning up, they're messing up and they're looking and they're going to find it. So at least train the kid that it's something dangerous and not touch it.
Right. I mean, I think the best thing is not to act like they don't exist, which I think is happening too much now. People like to act like guns aren't real or to try and shield children, but I really think it's just harming them, to be honest.
Sure it is. Education and training is the most paramount thing you can do for safety.
So what have y'all been doing anything with school safety to make sure the school, I'm sure y'all have, but
yes. One of the things that one of my visions is for unified command in our school systems. Instead of having diversified command, since that we have now taken over all the schools in Nash County, is have one law enforcement agency over all of the schools. And what I'm wanting to do is put the supervisor over the schools in the school administration so that he is there with the decision makers, the superintendent and all the school staff that are administrators, so that they're working hand in hand. I've just sent one of my top detectives who will be taking over the school safety program out to Uvalde, and he went out and spent some time there seeing what was right, what was wrong, and was at ground zero. I've also sent him out to Parkland to look and see what was right, what was wrong, what we can do better. We've invested a lot of money and a lot of training in this, and I take that very serious. I have kids that go to school, and when you send your kids to school, you want them safe. The last thing you want to think about is an unprepared law enforcement agency having to respond to a critical incident.
Right.
I think we're very prepared for that, but I'm wanting to carry it a step further and identify a problem before it ever exists. And I see that there is science behind working closely with the school administration and seeing indicators and identifying those indicators before it gets to those points. And that's what happened in Parkland, Florida. You know, there was a lot of indicators, but nobody acted on it. And we're just trying to put the training and education into it so that it don't happen here.
I know even at my school, I think we have a sheriff come in at least maybe every day, it feels like, and they just walk down the hallways, which I like. It makes us feel a lot safer being there. But.
It does, but identifying the problem before then will be a whole lot better,
Right.
because most active shooters last less than 3 minutes, and being able to get there, get into the location, you're going to have death. So why not let's try to work on the front end of it and put the science behind it. And if something does happen, have one leader responsible for the deployment of forces into those areas and being on the same page with the law enforcement agencies that are there. Another thing that Unified Command would do is, when threats do exist, is that we can evaluate them and then send them to every school. Because all of our school resource officers will be with the same office. And that will, as we see now with social media, things spur from one place to another. And the actual place where you're starting to see the social media posts and things might not be a place where something's going to happen at. So watching social media and having the training to identify these problems. And we're putting forth a lot to this. We're trying to get our SROs and stuff just walking through the halls to be in that caretaker and that person that is able to analyze this stuff and be an analyst too, so that we know, hey, here's the indicators, here's where the problem is, and have intervention before something happens.
So you said like keeping watch over kind of social media. Who exactly is like doing that, making sure nothing?
Right now, that's what I'm trying to say is I don't know what half the schools are doing, but I know what my schools are doing. And that's why we need to bring it together and put it under one roof so that we can disseminate it. Because a lot of times it might not even stay here. It might go across the state of North Carolina to some other school or into Edgecombe County with Sheriff Atkinson. Sheriff Atkinson's taken his whole schools, City of Rocky Mount schools, and his Edgecombe County schools, and they're all under his umbrella. That is the way to do it. You cannot have diversified command, especially in a critical incident. What is SROs there for? Well, they're there to prevent a critical incident.
Right. Because I mean, looking at most of the cases where it has been a school shooting, a lot of the signs were on social media, and just the people around them just kind of like knew by things they would say and do. So I think it's good that y'all are taking the steps to watch over these things.
You know, I was out at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center with Homeland Security last year, taking a class on this. It was a 2-week school, and that was one of the biggest things that we saw there, is we had leaders from across America in there being trained on what we missed, what we need to do. It actually had the families to come in and see the sadness on those families' faces where law enforcement failed, school systems failed. And that's why I take this so serious, and I am very adamant that we need to step up our professionalism in not only identifying a problem, but being able to work together to solve the problem. And the way you do that is having the law enforcement and the administrators side by side so they can bounce ideas off of each other.
That'd be good, because we don't need any more incidents like that anywhere in the country.
Sure.
Too many lives lost now by that. So after after all that happened, then you had the BLM riots in 2020. There was a dip in people wanting to join law enforcement or pursue a career in it. Are you still seeing those trends?
Sure. It takes a very different person and a person with a desire to serve the public to want to get in this. You've got to remember the onset of a critical incident where you might have to use a firearm or you might have to use force. You're going to be critiqued over and over and over, and you have only a brief second to decide what you're going to do. As we saw in a lot of the larger inner cities across America, which we did not see here, our community stood strong with us. But you saw where they didn't take care of their law enforcement. I went to Baltimore, Maryland during that time, and I got with the administrators there at the Baltimore Police Department. I said, I want to ride with your line officers. I want to see what they're doing. And they quit policing, and the community demised. And one of the officers told me, he said, there's 2 things that I do. He said, I come to work and I make sure I go home. And that's it. He's not getting involved in anything. So who suffers during that? the American people do. And I think in these places where they defunded the police, now they're wanting to fund them more than ever. But if you want professional law enforcement, you've got to fund them.
Right. I mean, when you're constantly threatening them, I mean, I don't know how, as a police officer, as a sheriff, I would feel going into work and then feeling like if you just did something that was going to be all over the news and then one little mistake and you're just done for.
Yeah, to look at Raleigh PD, we've got a police officer up there fighting for his life right now, where he made entry into a house because the lady in the house called and says, look, my boyfriend's been shot in the house. Well, she had run out of the house and left. Law enforcement goes there. What if it would have been a false call where somebody had just bogusly made this and he went into a house and had an encounter where it was not what it is now? You know, but that brave officer went into that house to save other people, citizens, and now he's fighting for his life and his family's by his side up there, hoping that he makes it through this. It is a very dangerous job, and they've got families to go home to. As I tell my men and women every day, you make sure you touch that doorknob when you come home of afternoon. In other words, you do what you can to live. We've had law enforcement officers shot. We've had law enforcement officers killed in vehicle accidents. We've had them shot at, and it's a very dangerous world out there. And that's one of the reasons that I prioritize training. Our deputies are trained more than any other agency that I know of anywhere. I spend a whole lot of money on training because I don't want to say that I was the one that did not provide the training so that officer could make it home.
And what would you say to anybody who is interested in pursuing a career in law enforcement?
Education is one of the main things so that you learn how to deconflict and de-escalate situations, and a person with education knows that because they have to work through problems and progresses to be able to get that diploma and to get that education. And the next thing is really self-search yourself and decide, hey, is this really what I'm wanting to do? It's an exciting career. I wouldn't go back again and pick another career. 21 years old, I went on the highway patrol, loved every minute of it. I spent a 30-year career. A lot of the stuff I saw that I probably don't want to see again or didn't want to see then, but, you know, it just makes you wiser and better to go out and try to make it safe for the community.
So how does the sheriff's office kind of like work with the Rocky Mountain Police and like the state troopers? How does that all work together?
Through good communications. Obviously, I was 30 years with the Highway Patrol, so I know their policy and procedures. I know how they're going to act in situations because I've got the same training that they've got. So therefore, me as a supervisor, I can understand what their methods and procedures are and obviously send that down through my ranks. Edgecombe County, I've worked very closely with him. Well, he was my shift partner for 14 years. He was a state trooper. We worked the same shift, same days off for 14 years. So when he's thinking, I can look at him and tell. That type of bond is what makes it good for the twin counties.
All right. I mean, good communication is everything.
That's
I guess.
it.
Yeah. So when it comes to like drug busts, obviously, like you're saying, and it could be anywhere in Nash County, do y'all work with the other agencies to deal with that, or is it just the sheriff's office?
No, I'm looking at putting other members on the DEA task force. I have members on the federal DEA task force, ATF task force. We have Edgecombe County that's part of our task force here, and we're constantly looking and seeing trends. Not only do we do the drug enforcement part, we do the drug interdiction on our interstate and in our communities and things. These guys are highly trained in criminal apprehension and identifying criminal activities and acting on it, being a proactive law enforcement. I'll tell a person that applies with Nash County Sheriff's Office, I don't want you responding to calls as a primary. What I want you doing is preventing crime. And that's being in the community, being a shepherd that you should be, and out looking for criminal activity, being proactive.
Right. So y'all do work, I guess, with federal agencies.
Oh, definitely all the time. Well, as I said, we've got several, probably have more people per capita on the task force than any other law enforcement agency in North Carolina.
So if y'all apprehend the suspects or the ones doing it, who takes them and deals with them, I guess?
We'll take them into custody, and then we will carry them before the federal courts and the large drug bust, and then the United States Marshals take them into custody, and then they will do the transportation and getting them back and forth to court. And then if it's a federal charge, they will go with the Bureau of Prisons, which is a federal system, or if it's a state charge, we'll maintain them and keep them here, and then they'll go before our court system, and then they'll go to Department of Corrections.
So it's actually a pretty smooth cycle to go through, because I think if you watch TV, you always feel like there's the local law enforcement and the federal, it's always like they're at ends, like they don't like each other.
At 10 o'clock last night, I was texting one of my federal partners. We have a very good working relationship with them. I attended the FBI National Academy for 13 weeks and made contacts there that have proved to be not only good for this community, but across America. As you remember the Lynn Keel case, and it was probably before your time, where he killed his wife, my criminal apprehension team identified that he was traveling towards the Mexican border. I made one contact through that, and in about 20 minutes, we had him in custody. It takes partnership. It takes the ability to reach out and touch you from another area. I take pride in what my men and women do, reaching out to other states and the federal government to be able to combat crime. If he would have got into Mexico and down in South America, I don't know if you'd ever found him again.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I take pride in, of our team identifying where he was and those contacts making that arrest that quick.
How do you think President Trump naming like Mexican cartels as foreign terrorists is going to help with the crime?
Let's take a serious look at, or a note with this. We've known this has been going on for years. Law enforcement in America needs to do their job to stop that stuff coming into our communities and be serious about it. Don't say you're being serious about it and not making any large drug bust. And then the courts have to take a serious stance on it. And then the citizens that are sitting on that jury need to make sure that they send those people to prison where they belong, because they're spreading poison in your community.
That's all it is poison.
Yep.
It's getting into everybody. I mean, fentanyl, have you been seeing fentanyl on things?
Fentanyl it runs EMS call for call, and that's where you're giving out this Narcan. This Narcan costs a lot of money, and you as a taxpayer are paying for it. We're seeing in the prison systems where they're just overdosing all the time, where they're getting this stuff in there. Every bit of this stuff is coming across our borders. So we need to secure those borders, and we need to stop the trafficking in America, because it's killing our communities.
What do you think is the best way to deal with like these drug dealers or the people who are funneling the drugs across the border?
Secure that border. Our interdiction teams across America working and being professional, stopping the travel of it before it gets into communities. And then these law enforcement officers across America not talking about it, being about it, and working drugs and working in the community and getting this poison out of the community.
What kind of punishments are you seeing for people who have been apprehended in front of a judge? What are they getting?
You know, as I look at it here in Nash County, we have Democrat and Republican clerks, the sheriff, my Superior Court judge, my district attorney. I can tell you we have the best court system, and we work very well together. We have a great bar for defense, and we've got a very good court system, and they take this serious. They know it's a problem, and they're taking it serious. The federal government, our U.S. Attorney, little Mike Easley, and I call him that because his dad was Mike Easley, the governor. What a significant impact he has made in eastern North Carolina, taking serious the drug trade. He gives 100% trying to bring these drug cartel members and very violent offenders to justice. And our federal courts don't play with them. They give harsh sentences.
They don't? Okay. So it would actually be unlike what we're seeing on national news then? With they're just kind of getting off really easy, nothing really happening to them?
I can tell you, if you caught trafficking drugs in North Carolina, Nash County is probably not good for you. You're going to spend a prison sentence.
Good. I mean, it should be.
I am very impressed with our court system. We work very well with them. And as I said before, it's not Democrat, Republican. It's about keeping communities safe and having the right person in the right position.
Right. So how do y'all like, obviously you said y'all want to prevent the crime from happening, and then you
Sure.
gave all the ways to do that. How do you think you equip the sheriff's office to be able to handle things before they happen?
Giving them good equipment, giving them good training. As I critique this Raleigh police officer shot, it was only moments before they had a Bearcat, which is an armored vehicle, on scene there to be able to go in and to stop this threat. It took 3 or 4 years for us to get that here in Nash County, and eventually we got it through the legislature. I cannot say enough about Alan Chesser, our House of Representative member, of what good things that he helped me work through to get good equipment in Nash County, from buying equipment as the Bearcat, patrol cars and equipment. And it takes this type of stuff, and it takes a lot of money for the training for these officers to be prepared. As our SWAT team here is, they've got good equipment, they practice all the time, and I send them they've just come back from Los Angeles, spending time with boots on the ground there. They've been in Las Vegas. Las Vegas has a whole lot more SWAT call-outs than probably anywhere in America. And they spent a week there with them, and they go all over. And somebody asked me one time, why do you spend so much training and time and money on these guys? Because when it gets too bad for the local state trooper or for my deputy on the road to be able to apprehend a dangerous subject, these guys are the ones that's got to go in. There's nobody else going in. Nobody.
Right.
And they've got to go in and they've got to apprehend this person or either stop that threat. And I want to make sure that I have did everything to keep my officers safe.
I mean, it would turn into like Seattle a couple of years ago when they had that piece of land that there was no law enforcement at all. Everybody could just do whatever they wanted because no one's going to stop them unless there's law enforcement and nobody's funding it.
And now they want law enforcement. They're giving them more ever, and they're giving them bigger salaries than ever.
Right.
I knew that was just a matter of time when they would have a crime-free zone and they're committing murders and everything else. Who's going to go there? Nothing but another criminal. And then it got so bad the criminals left.
Right. It's like they think Batman's going to come out of nowhere and
nobody's going to come save anything.
Nobody's going to be doing that.
That was an eye-opener to America.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're seeing an end to all that, the defund the police, that's all starting to go away now?
I saw it as soon as it started. I knew that was not going to hold water. My community here and myself and Clee Atkinson were on the front lines during Black Lives Matter and all this. We had not one incident in our county. Every other county had a problem. We didn't have a problem here because we have good ties to our community. Right. And we're in the community and we're working, and our deputies are in and out of these communities working with the people. We had good support here. I did not see that in a lot of areas across America, but I'll tell any police department where you're talking about a doctorate degree and you're doing this and you're trading books at a convention or at an association, you read this book, you read this book. No, what you need to focus on is what can I do to train my men and women up under me to be a leader? What can I do to make sure that they're getting the training? And the next thing is being in the community and reaching down to the lowest level person in that community, which is a child, and building relationships. And from the smallest child to the oldest person in the community. And that's the way you have public trust and you be able to fight crime. Because when they see something, they'll say something.
Right. So when you were talking about Alan Chesser bringing money back into the Nash County Sheriff's Office, could you put like a number on that, like a guess?
Millions of dollars.
Millions?
And that was unheard of before he come in. Mm-hmm. And Lisa Stone, she did, our senator, she backed him with this. And I was so impressed that Lisa and Alan worked together to be able to come up with this type of money to come back to Nash County. We've never had that before, and we've never had that type of support, and it's really helped us.
I think it's good. I mean, if I were a sheriff, I would like to see that, hey, our politicians actually care about us, and they're not bad-mouthing us in front of the world.
No, we totally do not have that. They support us very well, and any time that laws are being changed in Raleigh, I'm getting phone calls. What do you think about this? How do you think, if it's dealing with law enforcement? We have a good system. And I just hope we keep that system going.
Right, I hope so too. Keep them up there, keep bringing money back in the community, keeping us safe.
That's what it's all about.
What do you think is the next thing you'd want to, like a next initiative you'd want to look at going into?
One of the initiatives that I spoke with my chief deputy today is I'm wanting to enhance my jail staff in leadership training and sending them to places that have the best leadership training, because the supervisors in the detention facility, we have got to change a mentality of we're dealing with criminals. No, we're dealing with mental people in there more often than we are criminals. So that leadership training and more of the training for mental patients of how to deal with them and how to motivate your staff that's having to go back into the cells and deal with those individuals that are constantly causing problems, that are a constant threat. That's one of the biggest challenges that I see for this year. But as we had a early morning meeting this morning, and training and educating these supervisors and top supervisors in our detention facility to more leadership training dealing with the mental problem that we're facing.
Do you see like a lot of offices having to bring in like psychiatrists to deal with these things, like spending money on them?
We spend money quite often with horrific things that our law enforcement officers see. When you see children killed, when you see a mother that's been killed and thrown in a car and transported across the county, and then this person goes into a home and overtakes the home, and then he's armed with a weapon and commits suicide. My officers, third and fourth day on the job, come out and see this. They see when law enforcement officers get shot at. I've had one officer that had a few critical incidents back to back. When my deputy goes out to Western North Carolina with his cadaver dog and sees the carnage and the number of deaths and the demise of people and the horrific deaths that they went through, yeah, we have to spend money on that to keep our officers healthy. And that's why I want the community to know, look, these aren't the deputy sheriffs of 1950 and 1960 with a civil paper on the dash and he walks up and serves it. They're on the front line of protection of America. And when things go bad, they're the ones that come.
Right. So not only for the sheriffs and all the officers, do y'all have to do it for the mental patients who are in y'all's jails?
There's really limited help for those, and that's one of the things that frustrates me. Just sitting there behind bars is not helping them.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing right now. And no, there's not the programs and things because America's got to invest in it.
Right. I mean, for them, I mean, I can see where the best thing they think to do if they don't have any money is just throw myself back in jail so I can eat or have a place to stay at least for a couple of nights. And then, I mean, if you're mentally ill, it's going to be hard to find a job or anything because we don't have places for them to go.
Sure, you don't have, and it's 13 degrees out there today.
Right.
And the mental capacity of some of these people don't even have the capacity to get out of the weather. Mm-hmm. So they say, well, let's put them in jail, and that's the caretaker. And it takes a very special person to take care of these people in there. And the detention officer is not trained in it, and that's the reason we're trying to enhance that training there.
Okay. So obviously it snowed yesterday. Was there any incidents, or how did y'all prepare for that?
We prepare for it with our four-wheel drive vehicles and our all-terrain vehicles. We didn't have any bad incidents. Thankfully, DOT kept I-95 running. US 64 was cleared up quickly, and, you know, people got the message. Bad weather, stay home and enjoy your family.
Right. I mean, so there was no, like, late-night calls having to go out?
Oh, we have calls, and calls, domestics and things are always going to rise during that time when two people are in a house and they don't even want to be around each other and they can't, neither one of them can leave. It was more of the routine calls, which I don't like using the word routine because nothing's routine, but usually what I've seen is where gridlock happens with our travel patterns and people having to go into shelters and stuff. I did not see that this time. No, thankfully, it was snow good. And not ice.
Yeah, that's true. Thankfully, it was not snow. And it was a lot of snow too.
It was a right good bit. I came out early that morning, and it was snow and not ice, and I could get around very good. And our patrolling deputies good.
Okay. So now, would you say that the sheriffs, what y'all pay your officers to, is it more than it used to be since obviously there's been a decline?
It has been, and it's not where it should have been. The pay study was manipulated and not implemented fully, but we have a very good board of commissioners. Chairman is working very well with us, Chairman Outlaw, and we're in a better position than we were. And I think that as time goes on, we'll be one of the offices that is funded proudly, where you don't have these people leaving and just a revolving door.
So you're starting to see more people want to come back and actually work for law enforcement now, since
We are.
okay,
We are.
that's good, and then they're getting paid more.
And,
They should.
And retention is something. When you spend a lot of money, I just had one coming from a local agency, and then they upped his salary. Well, we had already spent $600 on him getting a mental evaluations and things of that nature, and he don't come here. If you're going to have top-tier law enforcement, you got to pay for top-tier law enforcement.
Right. So when the military, obviously with the COVID-19 shots, and then a lot of people didn't want to stay, and they said, we're not going to take the shot, and then they left. Now President Trump said they're going to get back pay, and they're going to be allowed back on. Did you see that anywhere with law enforcement agencies, where maybe not the back pay, but people were just laid off because there was mandatory, you have to get the COVID vaccine?
I saw it with the federal system. I didn't see it on our side. I did have one individual that did not want to take the test or did not want to take the shot, and it was a training opportunity, and then she decided, hey, I've got to take the shot if I want to go to the training. It was the FBI National Academy, and she took it, and she blames me every time that she gets sick now from it. I think that was a bad deal. I'm not a medical person, and I don't know, but if I had to go over again, I think that, and if America had to go over it again, I think they would look at it a whole lot different.
Right. I mean, we just threw out a vaccine very quickly compared to in the past history. I mean, it was very much a weird scenario that we were in. It kind of feels like a haze now looking back on 2020. But I'm glad to hear that that wasn't going on locally. But it's also kind of sad that they were forced to have to take something they didn't want to take on a federal level. And obviously, gladly, that's no longer a thing since President Trump removed it.
You know, and that's one of the things I saw during this demise of law enforcement's image. And law enforcement agencies, a lot of the inner city police departments across this country allowed officers to look any kind of way they wanted to. They wear anything they wanted to. They had all these beards and tattoos. And I asked myself one day, if my grandmother was still alive, would I want that officer to go to my grandmother? No, it would scare her. Mm-hmm. We're going to keep our professionalism here, and we're going to look. And I got beat up over it. You know, you're not changing with times. And then I saw an article in the New York Times where New York Police Department said, man, we're going to reel this back, and our officers are going to start looking professional. As leaders, and as this is with COVID, you can't change with the wind. You've got to keep your tradition, and you've got to understand that, hey, no, this might not be the best way, and we don't need to jump at every opportunity that comes out there. We need to be studied, and we need to put a lot of thought in before you make changes. And that was one of the things with COVID. That was one of the things where all these administrators across America, they bowed down to people just wanting them to change and to do things. And now they're having to go back and look and say, you know, is that a professional look for law enforcement? And it's harder to bring that stuff back in, where if you had just said from the get-go, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to keep our tradition. That's one of the things I'm so proud about the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps, our #1 fighting force. Mm-hmm. Look at their appearance. Look at a North Carolina trooper. They win it every year of their appearance. You don't see that. And they're strong on tradition, and that's what we try to do.
Right. I mean, we don't need our law enforcement looking like the village people.
That's exactly right. I mean, well, you're not, as long as I'm the leader of Nash County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, that's good. We sure don't need that, because I know I don't think anybody's grandparents want to be seeing that showing up at their door.
No, it's scary. And
I mean, how do you even know it's a real officer if they're not uniform, looking the same?
And, you know, I don't want my 13-year-old walking or 14-year-old walking to the door looking at that and seeing that and thinking that's okay. No, it's not okay.
Right.
Do you own an event space or wedding venue and need someone to come clean your space after an event? Call or email Fresh Bins Cleaning Company for all your event cleaning needs. They're based in Rocky Mount and serve the Nash, Wilson, and Edgecombe areas. To get an ad space on the show, email us at nashcountygop@gmail.com.
I just ask that the community really stay engaged with what's going on. And I'm so proud to see that we have 2 young people here today that are interested into politics. And it's not politics. It's doing the right thing for the community and staying involved. We need more and more of this. And that's one reason I'm proud to Sheriff Nash County. All the allegations was he's leaving, he's not doing this. No, I love policing Nash County. I love being the sheriff of this county because I have such great support of people that really care about their communities. Nash County is a prime area to raise children. We're 30 minutes from the county line over to anything you want in Raleigh. and we need to keep our county pristine. And bringing up our youth and keeping them involved and having opportunities here is how we're going to keep that going.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right.